What's up, y'all? Do you ever wonder how investors go about analyzing a deal before they buy it for a rental property? Well, today I wanted to kind of walk through that process with you. So, what I did, I went to the MLS today and I pulled up at random a house over in Florence, listed by the agency on Pine, 2326 Houston. And I just want to show you how I analyze that deal with a few simple tools that I have on my phone and a post-it note. The listing price on this house is $119,900, and I kind of estimate the rent for this house. It's a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath. I kind of think the rent in this neighborhood would be somewhere around $800. It's kind of on the outskirts of what would be a student rental for UNA, so it could be used for that. You could probably charge a little more for it, but I think probably between $750 and $850 is the real truth on that house. So if I took that house at $800, that would be a pretty safe place to analyze it. So the first thing you got to look at is what's it going to cost you up front. Do you got to have some money up front to invest in a rental property? That's pretty standard. Or you got to find a partner, or you got to find someone to help you with the financing. There's other creative ways to do it, but just for a straightforward analysis on this deal, we're just going to kind of keep things pretty simple. So 20% down on $119,900 is going to be $23,980. So you kind of just figure that number here, 20%, $23,980. So you're going to need that down. Generally, the bank is going to require you to have 20% down in order to buy an investment property. Now, if you're buying it as a home, you can get much lower on your down payment. Even some places, some products that allow you to have 0% down. But beyond that, the next thing you're going to need is closing costs. Now, you can negotiate that in and have the seller pay those closing costs if you want to, or for the sake of our analysis, we're just going to say that we're paying our own closing, generally about 3% of the entire deal. So we put $3,600 for closing cost. And those are my basic numbers that I have. Just run it with a calculator. Now I have a product that I use on my phone. It is called, I don't even know what it's called, to be honest with you. Investment property calculator. I just downloaded it on the App Store, and it is pretty keen because it helps you to track some costs and things like that. So I went ahead and put in our purchase price, $119,900. Let's see here. I can show you what that app looks like. It's this one. Well, it's backwards here, but it's this one right here, Investment Property Calculator. And so it shows you how to put the all the numbers in to get the idea for how much to pay for this house. So I also put in estimated repairs. This house is in pretty decent shape, and I'll share a link to the listing. But the house is in pretty good shape, and it is. I put about $1,500 for repairs. It might need some paint. It's got some wallpaper border in the room. It would probably be okay, but I would say if you took that down and touched up a few other little things, it would help the quality of the house altogether. So say $1,500 in repairs, and probably won't spend that. So if you don't, you bankroll that and put it in for later, because you're going to need it later on something. And so that makes your total loan amount $95,920, and I put, for the sake of argument, an interest rate of 4%. If you're moving into this house, you can get an interest rate much lower. If you're using it as a rental, it might be a little higher. So in the median there, about 4%. And that makes your total monthly payment is going to be $581.26. And your cash needed to make the deal happen is going to be $29,077. Can you see that there? All right, so now this app is cool because then you go to the next page and it has your income and expenses detail. So we've got $800 a month, and we're paying insurance and taxes. And then I put in here $80 a month, 10% for management if you want to put the property on management. If you do that yourself, when we're analyzing deals, if you're doing the property management yourself, you still want to figure for it because you want it to cash flow, so that if you ever decided later to put it on management, it would still make sense monetarily. So I put these expenses in. You can see I put $800 for, let's see, can you see that? $800 a month, $9,600 yearly. Taxes, I looked them up on delta.com or deltacomputersystems.com. That's a little tool you can use to go in and look up tax records for a property if you want to know how much the tax bill is going to be on that each and every year. So this particular house had a tax bill of about $425 a year, and then insurance I figured $75 a month for homeowners insurance or rental insurance. Now rental insurance and homeowners insurance are two different things. Remember that. So if you're buying this house to live in, you're going to want homeowners insurance that covers your contents and your home. If you're owning this as a rental property, what I do with mine is I have renters carry their own renter's insurance, and then I carry insurance on the structure of the home. So if something were to happen to the house, it would cover the house and the rebuild of the house, but it would not cover anything for the actual renter. They need to carry renter's insurance for their contents. Beyond that, I put in $40 a month for maintenance. So that means you're going to have things come up. You're going to have to paint probably every time you turn a unit over. You're going to have to go in and touch things up, patch up little holes where people have hung things on the wall, clean up the house, all that kind of stuff. So you put money back for things like that, and also bigger things that may happen. You know, all kinds of things happen when you own a home. If you own your own home, you know that. So when you're owning a rental property, you're doubling those problems that you're having. So if the AC unit has a problem, you can't just say, well, I'm not fixing it right now and suffer through it. You got somebody over there that is depending on you for them to have a comfortable place to live. So you need to make sure you have some reserves set aside to take care of that. Vacancy is another thing. So I figured in the course of a year, if you have a 1-year lease and a 1-year tenant who does what they're supposed to do, then over the course of that time, you're going to see that they leave, and you have about a 2-week turnaround where you, if you do it right, about a 2-week turnaround where you go in, you clean everything up, you touch everything up, and you get somebody else in there. So you want to figure for vacancy, so I just figure $40 a month for that, or $480 a year. Other than that, that gives you your total expenses for the year of for the month of $270 and a total expenses for the year of $3,245. So we go and we look at this as the final result. We're going to be making $800 a month in rent, and we're going to be spending a total of $581.26 and $270.42. And that means that you're going to be losing on this particular deal, you'll lose $51.68 per month. So that means your cash-on-cash return is negative, right? So what does that mean? Does that mean it's a bad house? No, it doesn't. And as an investment, it is it may not make perfect sense right now as a rental. You may if you change that to rent at $850, you know, then you're breaking even on the house every month. What we try to look for is from something that's going to cash flow $100 to $200 per door, right? So we want to make $100 to $200 per month by owning a rental property after all the payments are made. Now, what you're going to gain through this is you got to remember. So before I get ahead of myself, so what we would want to do then at $119.9, this house as an investment doesn't add up, right? But let's just say I went in and I offered them, say, $10,000 less. Okay, so I click on my little app here. I go back. And instead of $119.9, I go in at $109.9. And all my other numbers stay the same. So then this house, when I get to the last page, now it's only losing $3.20 a month, right? At $109.9. So what I've got to do is adjust my numbers and make my offers and then try to figure out if I can make this house work as a rental. Now, like I said, I picked that house at random. I didn't know if it would make a good rental or not. In the area, it seems like it'd be a decent rental area, and you may be able to rent it for more, you know. So we either got to do this. We got to get the house for cheaper or we got to rent it for more, right? That house makes sense if you rent it at like $950. And you might be able to do that. You might be able to do that if you do student rentals. You know, that's something that's kind of is a little more lucrative because you can charge by the room. So if you charge $300 a room and then use the common areas, you could do that and make a little more rental income. Managing it yourself is going to put $80 in your pocket. You may, especially starting out, you can do that. So you don't have to necessarily negotiate the price down if you'll do some other things. But either way, chose a house at random, analyze the deal, and that's how I look at a house. And the more you do that, the more easy it will be for you to see whether a house makes sense as a rental property investment. Overall, when it comes time to buy that house, if you can get a house to break, and some investors believe that, if you can get a better house but you get it to break even, in other words, somebody else is paying for it, all you had to do was put your initial investment up front, and somebody else is paying the bills, and over time you eventually own it. Because what happens is what? The income goes up over time because the rents are going to increase, and the interest and principal, or the principal, is going to go down over time, and you're going to make the gap in between. So, if you had, okay, let's just say you had bought this house 5 years ago. Okay, if you bought this house 5 years ago, you probably bought it under 100. I would say you probably bought. Let's just say you bought it at 99. Okay, so it's gone up $20,000 in 5 years. It's probably been more than that. I could look it up, but for the sake of just not belaboring the point, I'm going to say you bought it. Whoever's selling it bought it for 100 5 years ago, right? So for $100,000 5 years ago, now what's happened is they put their down payment down, and a renter paid 5 years worth of debt for them. And so the renter has paid it down to say, let's say $75,000, right? So they bought it for 100. The renters over 5 years have paid. Let's just make sure that's good. That's good math I'm doing there. So let's just say that's rented for $700 a month for 5 years. That's going to be times 60. That's $42,000 in reduction, right? And then let's say the costs we have associated with it and all that. So let's say we got the house down to 75, which is conservative, right? So we got the house down to 75, and now we're selling it for 119. It really would be like 58, but we're going to say 75. So we minus the 75 from the 119, and that gives you $44,900 in profit, right? $44,000 and $45,000 in 5 years for managing the property and owning it. Not to mention the rent that you've collected over the time, the cash flow that you had if you bought the deal right. So that's how I kind of look at a deal every time I'm looking to analyze a deal as a rental property, right? And there's different things. You have to look at a lot of different things. What you're going to have to do, how much cash you got to have up front. There's ways around some of that stuff. There's financing that maybe is a little bit better. One thing I forgot to mention, that note, that financing that I plugged in there is on a 20-year amortization. Most of the investment loans I see out there are what they call balloon loans. So they will put those on a 5-year balloon. Okay, so that means that you pay your money, down payment, and all that kind of stuff, and you have a locked-in interest rate for 5 years. And then at the end of 5 years, all of the money comes due. Okay, and what happens there is you refinance at the current interest rate generally, or if you pay, you may have paid it off in that course of time, and that's then you own it outright. But that 5-year balloon means you get 5 years of that same interest, and then everything is due, and then generally what they will do is put it on a 15 or 20-year amortization, which means we are going to put the payment on it like you're paying it off in 20 years, but in 5 years due in full, or we refinance it if everything credit-wise checks out and all that kind of good stuff. So anyway, I hope this helps you to just kind of understand how we analyze deals when we're getting ready to go out and make a purchase. Generally, looking for that $100 to $200 cash flow, and in a neighborhood or area that we feel like is going to appreciate at some clip. You don't want to go buy something that's going downhill. Obviously, nobody wants to do that. So that being said, if you want to send me a deal to analyze for you, if you'd like something with a little bit more in depth, if you see a house and you think, well, this would be a great house, I think, but you want to catch some of these costs in there, or you want me to talk through it or look at it for you, I'd be glad to do it. My name is John Wright with Knight and Humphreys Real Estate, and it's 256-412-1412. Again, John the House Guy is the name I go by, and if I can help you, I'll be glad to do it. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you soon. God bless.